Everyone's buzzing about sustainability these days, right? But it's way more than just a trend, especially when it comes to furniture.
Yeah, for sure.
So today we're going to be taking a deep dive into some material from this German furniture company called ASKT.
Okay.
And their whole thing is like making sustainability a core part of how they do business.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they've titled this little excerpt, Sustainability as a Competitive Advantage, Circular Economy in the Furniture Industry.
That's a mouthful. It seems like they're really pushing to be seen as like the leaders in this whole sustainability thing.
Yeah, it definitely has that marketing feel to it.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see how they actually back up these big claims. What were some of the things that really jumped out at you when you were going through this material?
Well, one of the biggest things was this whole idea of a circular economy that ASKT keeps bringing up.
Hmm.
And it's a pretty different way of thinking compared to that like traditional, linear model of production and consumption.
Yeah, okay, so break that down for me. What exactly does a circular economy look like when we're talking about furniture?
Basically, it's all about like moving away from that old take, make, dispose thing.
Right.
And instead designing furniture that is durable and you can repair it, reuse it, and like eventually recycle it.
Mhm.
They're really trying to keep materials in use for as long as possible.
So it's not just about using recycled materials.
Right.
It's about the whole life cycle of the furniture piece
Yep.
and thinking ahead to how it can be recycled.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a pretty big shift in thinking.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's a whole different way of looking at things.
Yeah, and ASKT is really emphasizing how the German furniture industry like is being kind of forced in this direction by these regulations,
Yeah.
like the EU Green Deal and that upcoming EU deforestation regulation or EUDR.
Oh, yeah, the EUDR. I've heard about that. So what does that certification actually involve for companies? Like ASKT, what do they have to do to actually meet those standards?
Well, it's a whole set of standards. It's pretty intense. They have to show that like all their wood comes from legal and sustainable sources.
Okay.
And they need to have ways to track it, like from the forest all the way to the final piece of furniture. Basically, no more shady wood sources.
Right, like full transparency.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It is.
But it seems like ASKT is spinning this as like a positive thing, not just a burden.
Right.
So how do they make that argument?
Well, they're really pushing this idea that being sustainable is what's going to set them apart in the market.
Okay.
Like consumers are becoming way more aware of the environmental impact of what they buy and are looking for brands that share their values, right?
Yeah.
So ASKT is basically saying, hey, we're ahead of the game here. We meet these really tough standards, and that makes us the better choice.
It makes sense. I can see how that would appeal to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But is there a risk that this is just greenwashing? Like, how can we know that they're actually doing what they say they are
Right.
and not just talking a big game?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And it's a question we should be asking about any company making these big sustainability claims these days.
Yeah.
Because, anyone can throw around buzzwords, but it's the actions that really matter.
Exactly. It's all about walking the walk.
Right.
So what are some of the concrete things that ASKT is doing to show that they're really committed to sustainability? Are they actually doing things differently?
Well, they highlight a few key areas. One is that they've gotten rid of all plastic packaging
Okay.
and now use this honeycomb paper protection, which is supposed to be much better for the environment.
Okay. That's a good step. But it seems kind of small when you think about the whole picture.
Yeah.
What about the furniture itself? Are they using different materials or production methods?
They do talk about something called circular design, which is like their big thing. It basically means they want to make furniture that lasts a long time, can be repaired, and eventually recycled. They use really strong materials and parts that you can replace if they get worn out.
So it's like they're building furniture to last for decades instead of just a few years.
Right, exactly.
But I'm curious about the specifics. What kind of materials are they actually using? And does that actually reduce the environmental impact of their furniture?
That's where things get a little fuzzy.
Okay.
They say they use durable materials, but they don't really say what kind of wood or other things they use.
It would be good to know more about where they get their materials and if they're using like recycled or sustainably harvested wood.
Yeah.
What about the way they make their furniture? Are they doing anything different there to minimize their environmental impact?
They mention that a little bit. They talk about using low-impact adhesives and water-based finishes, which is a step away from those traditional solvent-based finishes that have a lot of VOCs.
Okay, so it sounds like they are making some effort to make their production more eco-friendly.
Hmm.
But what about the social side of sustainability?
Hmm.
Do they say anything about fair labor practices or the conditions in their factories?
The document doesn't say anything about that at
Oh,
all.
really?
It would be helpful to have more info about their ethical sourcing and manufacturing practices.
Yeah, it's hard to get a complete picture without that information.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like they're focusing so much on the environmental stuff, but the social side is important too.
Definitely.
Okay, so it seems like ASKT is taking some steps in the right direction, but there are some missing pieces in their story. What do you think about their whole claim that sustainability gives them a competitive advantage?
Uh-huh.
Do you buy it?
Well, I mean, it's a really good argument, that's for sure. And there's no question that more and more people want to buy sustainable products. But like whether that actually makes them stand out, that's a different story. I guess it depends on how well they get that message across and if they can actually prove it.
Right, show don't tell.
Exactly.
And it seems like they could be more open about some things, like where they get their materials from and how they treat their workers. But let's zoom out a little bit and think about the bigger picture.
Okay.
What does this whole circular economy thing mean for the furniture industry as a whole?
Hmm.
And how would it change things for people like us, regular furniture buyers?
Well, it's a huge shift. It could affect everything, like from the way we buy furniture to how long we keep it. I think one of the most interesting things is how it goes against that whole planned obsolescence idea,
Hmm.
where things are designed to break or go out of style quickly. Now it's all about making things last a long time.
So it's like saying goodbye to fast furniture and hello to slow furniture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to admit, I've totally fallen into that trap of buying trendy pieces that don't last very long.
Oh, yeah. It's so easy to do. But with a circular economy, it's all about investing in well-made furniture that you can fix up, reupholster, or even like change the shape of over time.
Oh.
It's about having pieces that we really love for years and years, maybe even decades, instead of always chasing the latest fads.
I really like that idea. It's like buying furniture that has a story to tell.
Right.
But it makes me wonder, if people are holding on to their furniture longer, wouldn't that mean furniture companies would sell less?
Yeah.
Could it actually hurt the industry?
That's a good point. And yeah, there's definitely a chance of things being shaken up. But it also opens up new opportunities for businesses that are willing to adapt.
Okay.
Instead of just selling new furniture, they could offer repair services.
Hmm.
Or they could become like the experts in making their furniture last longer.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's almost like shifting from just selling a product
Hmm.
to providing a whole service.
Right, exactly. And it creates a totally different relationship between the company and the customer.
Yeah.
It becomes about building trust and loyalty, not just making a quick sale.
Okay, so what about places that sell used and vintage furniture?
Hmm.
Would they benefit from this whole circular economy thing?
Oh, absolutely. As people become more aware of sustainability, they're going to be more likely to buy used furniture that's still in good shape.
Right.
It's a great way to keep things out of landfills and give those cool old pieces a second life.
I've always been a fan of vintage furniture. It's so much more unique and interesting than that mass-produced stuff you find everywhere.
For sure.
And from an environmental standpoint, it's hard to beat.
Right.
You're not using any new resources. You're rescuing something from ending up in the trash, and you're often getting better quality for less money.
It's a win-win all around.
Okay, so this all sounds really promising,
Yeah.
but are there any downsides or challenges that come with this shift to a circular economy in the furniture world?
Well, there are definitely some hurdles. One of the biggest is cost. Using sustainable materials in manufacturing can be more expensive up front.
Right.
So sustainable furniture might not be affordable for everyone.
Yeah, that's a good point. Not everyone can afford to buy expensive, sustainably made furniture.
Exactly. And there's also the issue of people just not knowing enough about it.
That's
People need to understand why sustainable furniture is important and what to look for when they're buying it.
right.
It can be really confusing with all the different certifications and claims out there.
Yeah, no, I find it overwhelming sometimes too.
Yeah.
Are there any other potential challenges that come to mind?
Well, another big one is making sure that everything is transparent and accountable throughout the whole supply chain. It's easy for companies to say they're sustainable, but actually putting it into practice at every step is a lot harder.
So companies need to be able to prove it with real actions and data, not just words.
Exactly. And then there's the question of infrastructure. Like, do we have the systems in place to collect old furniture, take it apart, and recycle it?
Uh,
If we don't, even the most eco-friendly furniture could still end up in a landfill.
So it's not just about making better furniture, it's about creating a whole new system
Yeah.
that supports this circular economy idea.
Exactly. But I think the most important thing is that this change is already happening.
Okay.
Companies like ASKT are trying to be the leaders in this, and more customers want sustainable options.
Hmm.
It's really interesting to see how this industry is evolving.
So it's not just a dream, it's actually gaining momentum.
Right.
This has been so insightful. I'm seriously rethinking my whole approach to furniture now.
Yeah, me too.
But before we wrap things up, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what all of this means for us, the everyday furniture buyers.
Okay.
What can we do to support this shift towards sustainability and make better choices?
Yeah, it really feels like we're at this point where like sustainability is becoming the norm. It's not just this niche thing anymore.
Yeah, it's becoming what people expect.
Right. And like as consumers, we can really make a difference in how this whole thing plays out. It all starts with being informed, making choices for a reason.
So basically doing our homework and not just believing everything companies say about being sustainable.
Exactly. Look past the marketing hype and get into the details. What materials are they using? Where's it all coming from? How are they making this stuff?
It's all about transparency. Are there any certifications or labels that we should look for?
Oh, yeah. There are a bunch out there. It can be a little overwhelming, to be honest.
Right.
But the FSC certification, the Forest Stewardship Council, that's a good one to keep an eye out for, especially for wood products. It means the wood comes from responsibly managed forests.
What about the whole ethical production side of things?
Yeah.
Are there certifications that address fair labor practices?
Fair Trade USA, they're a good one.
Okay.
They certify products that meet some pretty high standards, for social, environmental, and economic stuff.
Mm.
It's not as common in furniture as it is in other industries, but it's definitely something to look for.
It's great that there are resources out there to help us make better choices.
Yeah.
But certifications aside, what else can we as consumers do to support this whole circular economy thing when it comes to furniture?
Well, I think one of the simplest things is to change the way we think about furniture.
Okay.
Instead of buying cheap stuff that falls apart quickly, invest in good quality pieces that are made to last.
So look for timeless designs and durable materials, stuff that we'll want to keep for years, not just until the next trend pops up.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to fix up your furniture instead of throwing it away.
Right.
A little repair or refurbishment can go a long way.
It's amazing what a little PLC can do,
Right.
and it's way cheaper than buying something new.
And speaking of affordable, don't forget about used and vintage furniture.
Yeah.
You can find such amazing pieces that are stylish and sustainable.
It's so much fun. It's like going on a treasure hunt, and you never know what you're going to find. Plus, it's a great way to reduce waste and support a circular economy.
Totally. And then when you do need to get rid of furniture, make sure you do it responsibly.
Okay.
Check with your local recycling center to see if they'll take it or look for places that donate used furniture.
So it's all about closing the loop. Right.
Exactly. It's about making sure our furniture doesn't end up in a landfill even after it served its purpose.
And thinking about the impact our choices have on the planet, even for future generations.
Yeah, for sure.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive. I'm definitely going to be more mindful about my furniture choices from now on.
Me too.
Huh?
It's clear that the furniture industry is changing big time, and we all have a role to play in making it more sustainable.
Well said.
Mhm.
It's not just about buying eco-friendly stuff. It's about changing how we think about buying things and how we value the things we own. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
This has given us so much to think about.
It has. And remember, even small changes can make a big difference. So next time you're thinking about getting new furniture, take a minute to think about its whole life cycle
Yeah.
and make a choice you feel good about.
Great advice.
Thanks.
Well, that's it for this deep dive into sustainable furniture. Catch you next time.